Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And then today we will see, we will work out a couple of NMR problems to check out how much we have learned so far. Okay, so before going to that, the yesterday class that I have forgotten very important topic that I will just finish within 5 minutes, and then we will go to the NMR problems. The first and foremost thing that there are certain compounds like dimethyl formamide. I am sure that most of you would have known this compound. So there is a compound what is known as N-dimethyl formamide. It's a chemical formula is this. Okay, this compound is giving two NMR signals. If you are recording the NMR spectrum at room temperature. On the other hand, suppose if you measure the NMR spectrum of the same compound in the same NMR solvent at a very high temperature, like let's say above 100 degrees centigrade, like 130 degrees centigrade, then this compound is showing only one NMR signal. What is the reason for this? So the reason is actually in the title itself, it is there. So the restricted rotation is the primary reason for this. And as you know that the N-dimethyl formamide, there is a heteroatom that is nitrogen atom. So the nitrogen atom is having two lone pair of electrons. So it can donate and then it can participate into this kind of resonating form. So we can write, partial, there can be a partial positive charge on the nitrogen atom, heteroatom, and then there can be a negative charge on the oxygen atom. So you just realize that there is a double bond here because of the charge donation, and then there is a double bond between the C and then nitrogen. Initially, it is only a single bond, but then later it becomes because of the charge transfer from nitrogen. So it becomes a partially double bond character. So that is primarily responsible for absorbing two NMR signals for the N-dimethyl formamide. And when you, because of this restricted motion around C double bond N, we always see that there are two different type of methyl groups. Okay, so this methyl group is one is present to the syn and the other one is anti. Okay, syn and anti. So one methyl is this side, the other one is this side. So this methyl proton chemical environment is different because this side you can see the nitrogen atom is there and so oxygen atom is there. On the other hand, this methyl proton has a different chemical environment, so it has a slightly different one. So therefore, so what is observed in the case of N-dimethyl formamide, we can understood in terms of the restricted rotation around the C double bond N. Okay, so this kind of restricted rotation is also seen a couple of other molecules. For example, that we know that the ethane, 1,2-dibromoethane molecule. You can just imagine that, if you see the chemical formula of 1,2-dibromoethane is Br CH2 CH2 Br, right? That you have ethane molecule and one hydrogen on the both the carbon atom. If you can replace with a bromine, then we can have dibromoethane. Then there are 4 protons, and then CH2 CH2 methylene protons are there. So these methylene protons are actually, if you look at, they are present in a chemical same chemical environment. So they are said to be basically equivalent protons with regard to chemical reactivity. Therefore, naturally, one would expect that it will give one particular NMR signal. Okay, because it is a symmetrical molecule. You can also apply the symmetry rules, and then you can make it out whether it is a chemically equivalent or non-equivalent. So, if chemically non-equivalent protons will give different NMR signals accordingly, right? So the point is that the 1,2-dibromoethane is a symmetrical molecule, and then if you try to predict the NMR spectrum of that one, there is only one signal is possible because of the two identical methylene protons. Okay, but it is again possible that one can write down the Newman projection conformers for this any ethane molecule, and then you can just look into this if you strictly look into the Raman projections of the 1,2-dibromethane, let's concentrate on this particular proton, which I am labeling with this kind of round. I have labeled it, and this particular proton is present in two different environments. You can see that, here it is present in between the bromide and hydrogen, but in other conformation we can see that it is present in between the hydrogen, and then there is a hydrogen, right? And the other conformation, it is present again between these one. So therefore, depending upon the conformer, that the proton which we have labeled this proton, uh, chemically it is same, but then it is present in different different magnetic fields. I mean, it's not the very huge magnetic field which I'm talking about. It is the magnetic field which I'm talking about. The local magnetic field is different because of the presence in the different chemical environment, right? Because of the conformers, right? So there have been studies with regard to this conformers of this one, and then suppose if you can lower the temperature of the system of this 1,2-dibromethane, and then if you can measure the NMR spectrum at a very low temperature, it is possible, and in fact people have really identified different NMR peaks instead of looking at only one particular NMR signal. Okay, so we anticipate normally one signal, but then but when you lower the temperature, we see different signals. Now, again, why we see one signal at a higher temperature, whether it is this compound, or whether it is this particular compound, the NN dimethyl formate, which I have discussed previously. Why they are showing one particular signal? Okay, so I think this I mentioned, right? At room temperature, we see different thing, but then when you increase the temperature, then we only see one particular NMR signal, right? And similarly here, that at room temperature we will see only one signal, but when you lower the temperature, then you will see different signals. So the concept is same. Okay, with increasing the temperature, the conformers actually merge it together, and then as a result we see only one particular NMR signal. Okay. So this is mainly because as you increase the temperature, then the conformers actually, the rotation around the bond, CC bond, actually keep on changing, and the as a result, the rate of the rotation basically changes. As a result, we come across a averaged proton. Okay, if it is rotating slowly, that is what exactly happened in the case of NN dimethyl formamide, DMF. Shortly, its short name is DMF, NN dimethyl formamide. Dimethyl formamide, we say in a routine chemistry laboratory. So DMF actually will show only one particular signal at room temperature because of the restricted rotation. On the other hand, if you increase the temperature, then what happens? Then it's these conformers, actually the rotation around this CW1C increases, and then it becomes a kind of a single bond, and then single bond C double bond C, or C double bond N, C single bond N, or C double bond N, C double bond C. All these very fastly they are rotating. So that fast rotation actually is very fast enough that the NMR detector detects the signal. So okay, so it cannot detect the two different methyl groups. In the case of a DMF, it only detects one because very fastly it is rotating. The same thing is true in the case of this particular the 1,2-dimethyl 1,2-dibromoethane, and as the temperature is increasing from low temperature to the high temperature, that is the room temperature. As a there also the same situation, that the C single bond C rotation becomes faster and faster. Then we don't see the NMR detector cannot see two different two different chemical environments for a proton. It only see a averaged effect. as the temperature increases, you can just remember that as the temperature increases, so we can only see an average effect rather than looking at the fine details. Same thing is also true for the axial and then equatorial proton. We can apply the same thing that the axial and equatorial proton we cannot distinguish at room temperature, but as you go to the low temperature, one can determine the two different type of proton, that is axial and equatorial proton. And yesterday I have given that roughly about minus 135 degrees centigrade. You can, if you can perform an experiment at 135 minus 135 degrees centigrade, then it is possible that you can really distinguish axial proton and then equatorial proton. Okay, so this type of analysis, this type of NMR experiments are really helpful in older days to really estimate the energy barrier. I think probably you all would have studied Gaussian, skew, and then eclipse. There are the different type of the conformers are there for this kind of methane and cyclohexane, right? So these conformers can be confirmed. So what is the energy barrier between the any two type of conformers can be estimated by measuring the NMR spectrum. So you need not to do any other experiment, but older days that the people have used this as a tool to measure the energy barrier between two conformers. Probably you all would have, I don't really remember those numbers, but I'm sure that you might have remembered those numbers between two conformers, what is the energy barrier, and those energy barriers are experimentally, this is important. Theoretically, you can measure by doing a Gaussian calculation or semi-empirical calculation, which I have designed one experiment, probably in that, as when you reach the department, when we start doing it as one experiment, we are going to do how the rotation around a particular bond is affected, and we are going to plot a potential energy surface for a couple of molecules. Okay, so that's those type of calculations one can always do, but then the theory is different and the experiment is different. But experimentally, if you want to determine the energy barrier between the two conformers, NMR is really helpful technique. And then this is the technique that one can use it. And this is the formula that one can use to exactly determine the energy barrier for between the two conformers. And then you also remember that unless the detector sees if the time difference, if a particular conformer actually stays in a particular conformation, if it is staying more than this delta t, then it is possible that one can actually distinguish the two conformers. As a result, we can always obtain the okay, so we can really resolve two different conformers or two different NMR signals only when a particular a molecule stays more than or longer than delta t time. Okay, delta t is the time that it is required. So if the detector time is less than this, okay, if the detector time is less than this, then definitely you can actually detect it. If the detector time is much shorter than the by the time the conformer changes from one conformer to the other one, definitely you cannot detect it. Okay, so in that particular situation, we only see the average time effect, okay, or the average environmental effect that we will see, and then both conformers gives one particular signal, or both the peaks will be merged together. So that's all it is. And then I must tell you the actual truth that this particular example it was given in the CSR examination some time ago. Okay, so they have asked. They did not ask directly, but then they have asked very indirectly. They have said that there is a compound. The compound is given, and this particular compound is at low temperature. They did not cite these temperatures. Okay, they just said that low temperature, high temperature. This is what they mentioned, and then so what could be the reason for that? So what could be the reason for observing two different signals for the dimethyl formate. This is what was asked. And for your information, that the delta of one methyl is is generally seen at 2.97. The other one is seen at 2.88 ppm. Okay, but the concept is same there. It is asked in a slightly different way, but then the concept is same. So restricted rotation. So we are discussing about the cyclohexane, and it has two protons, and the axial and equatorial protons, and these protons again can be at the normal temperature. The usual case that both are said to be identical with regard to the NMR spectroscopy, and chemically also both are same, and then we normally anticipate only one particular NMR peak. But then when you really lower the temperature, and typically, so when you can lower the temperature to minus 135 degrees centigrade or so, then it is possible that one can really distinguish the axial proton as well as the equatorial proton. Previously, I explained about the 1,2-dibromoethane, and then in the previous slide, I have explained about the DMF restricted rotation about the DMF, and it's observing two different chemical shift values for methyl protons. Okay, so now the NMR was used in the older days. Even now, also many people use to calculate some of the energies, and then especially with regard to this ethane derivatives, Gaussian, Q, and then anti-S. So all these forms, the energy barriers used to be experimentally verified, experimentally used to be determined using the NMR experiment. So for that, just we have to record the NMR spectrum and look at the peak width of the protons, and then taking those, calculating those things, and then using this formula, one can really estimate the energies. Okay, and then please remember that we can only restrict, or we can only resolve individual resonance if the molecule stays in a particular conformation slightly longer than delta T. So delta T is the lifetime. You can say it is a lifetime. If a conform is staying a very longer time, it is fairly easy that longer time than the detection limit, then it is possible to detect. Otherwise, the NMR cannot really resolve it, right? If the conform is very rapidly changing from one conform to the other one, whose time is very shorter than the detection time of the NMR spectrometer, then it is really difficult to actually find the fine details. I mean that the protons do not give the different peaks. Only it will give a average proton. That means that only one particular proton, one particular NMR signal can be observed. Okay, so right, and then this particular, so I think this is where we have disconnected. The dimethyl formide, the problem was given in one of the CSR examination in a different way, and they have not mentioned any temperature, and then they mentioned like okay, there is a compound so and so, and then it is giving two different proton signals for methyl thing, this one and this one, and then they asked basically to find out what exactly is the compound. I think I vaguely remember this, but it is there. I think they have asked the chemical structure of the molecule. So they gave all the details, like, you know, at one temperature, only one signal, the other temperature it is two signals, and then their values also given. And finally, they were asking what is the chemical structure, and then the chemical structure, there are four options are given. So what is the exactly is the structure? It was asked. Okay, I will maybe probably I can tell you in the next class which CSR paper it is given. So you try to any issue now? I hope that there is no issue, right? So it is important, and this kind of problems can be asked in the CSR point of view. But remember, restricted rotation is a very important thing, and when you come across a particular compound giving, you are expecting one particular signal, but if it is giving more than one signal, means one of the reason could be this restricted rotation. So look for the heteroatom whether it is present or not. And if heteroatom is there, the lone pair electrons can be donated, and then the bond, instead of single bond, it will get the partial double bond, and that can lead to that can lead to observing two different signals. So just keep in mind this one. Now we'll move on to the actual topic of today's class, and we have NMR spectrum is nothing but the chemical shift versus the intensity, and the chemical shift is plotted on the x-axis, and then the intensity of different signals are plotted on the y-axis. Right. So, what exactly the NMR spectrum will give you? What kind of information a particular NMR spectrum will give you? If anybody asks you that, one has to say at least these 4 points which I have summarized here. Okay. If you are unable to tell, this is always I tell the student that at the end of your MSc, if you are not able to say these 4 points with regard to NMR, then basically nobody will appreciate. Okay, please remember this, at least this is a minimum requirement. What information basically NMR gives. So if anybody asks you in any interview or in general anywhere, that at least you are supposed to tell these 4 points. One point is that, okay, there are different signals will be there. You can count those signals and then say that, okay, if there are 5 signals, then you can say from the number of different type of from the number of signals, by counting the number of signal, we can tell the person who is asking you that, okay, based on the number of NMR signal present in a spectrum, we can tell that, okay, there are if it is a 5 number, 5 different type of hydrogens, or type of carbon-13, or type of the nitrogen, or type of boron, or type of fluoride. Okay, so this is what we can say. Okay, you just look at the number. Based on the number, you can say, okay, those many type of protons are there. That means each type of the magnetically active nuclei, okay, is present in those many number of chemical environments. That is how that you see those many number of NMR signals. Okay, so then now I have confined to proton signal, and in MS level mostly we confine to proton and carbon, and other things normally we don't discuss, but then CSR point of view, that is also important. And we will try to see if time permits the other nuclei, but mostly we will confine to our discussion to proton and carbon. So with regard to proton NMR, if anybody asks you, and if the spectrum is given, that the first and foremost information we can get is that, okay, those many types of hydrogen are present in that particular molecule. Similarly, if you come across a signal at 5 or 6, then you can say that there is a vinylic proton, right? If there is a proton above 9 and between 10, then you can always say that there is a aldehyde proton is present. So likewise, okay, the position of the signal will give you what is the chemical environment that is present. Okay, I'm sure that you are also parallelly studying the FTIR spectrum, spectroscopy, and interpreting the molecular structure using the, especially to determine the functional groups. We can use the to determine the functional group presence in a given organic molecule. We can use the FTIR data, and then suppose CO is there, and then the CO stretch can be seen, somewhere around 1650 centimeter inverse to the 1750 centimeter inverse, depending upon the functional group. Okay, CO can present in acid, and then aldehyde, ketone, and then amide. So different ester also present. So based on the situation, it can present anywhere there. So the moment you see a peak, and then you have to determine that, okay, there is a stretch, very strong stretch is there in between this region, which is actually a carbonyl stretch. And if you come across a very broad peak after 3,100 or 3,000 above, and then before 3,500 or 400, very broad peak, then we say it is a OH peak. Okay, and if you see a peak at 2,250 centimeter inverse, we say there is a C triple bond stretching, right? So likewise, here also the same, that based on the position of the peak, one will be able to tell that what is the environment That means indirectly you are going to determine, indirectly you are going to say something about the functional group present in that particular organic molecule. So that is point number 2. And point number 3, that this is not discussed so far to you, but then this is also a very important point, please remember. And this point is not valid for the carbon 13 NMR. The third point is not valid for carbon 13 NMR. Okay, so I tell you that why I tell you later why it is so, but then you remember with regard to the proton NMR spectrum, and the area under the curve will tell you and will give you the information how many protons are present. How many? Okay, it is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So this is the information that normally we get from the area under the curve. Area under the peak, not curve, sorry. So area under the peak will give you how many type of hydrogen atoms are present under each signal. Okay, if you have 5 different signals and then you try to measure the area under this one. So the third point is basically based on the area under the area under each NMR peak will give you the information of how many type of how many number of hydrogens are present under that particular peak. Okay, so suppose if you have 5 different 5 NMR peaks are there in the spectrum, and you can just measure the area of one particular peak, and then there is a process that you can normalize the area with regard to one particular peak, and then you can basically tell how many number of protons are present under a particular NMR peak. And then you can do the same analysis with regard to the other 4 different NMR peaks. This process, what we call as the integration, the peak integration, NMR peak integration, will give you the information of the total number of hydrogens present in a given molecule. Okay, because you have 5 different protons are there, 5 different NMR signals are there. That means when you measure the area under the each one, then and then if you sum up all those protons, then essentially that is what the total number of hydrogens present in a given molecule, right? So this particular third point, this particular point is only for, this integration is only for usually valid for proton, but with regard to carbon, this analysis has some limitations, which I will discuss when we discuss the carbon 13 NMR. But remember, one can easily do this integration process for the proton, but not always for carbon 13 NMR. There are few limitations are there. So the integration will give you the total number of hydrogens present in a given molecule. How it can be done? This is a process of measuring the area under each NMR peak, and then normalizing it to a particular number, and then it will give you the total number of hydrogens. So I will tell you that process as we proceed in the discussion of NMR spectroscopy. Right now, I think this is what is enough. And then the fourth point, the splitting pattern. Okay, the splitting pattern is something that we have not discussed, but then I am sure that in the first semester or the second semester physical chemistry, probably you would have experienced what is NMR splitting, right? Spin-spin splitting concept. Perhaps it was introduced by the other teacher. So based on the splitting pattern, one can also tell that, okay, you just concentrate a particular NMR peak, and then if it is a triplet, for example, if it is a triplet, then how many the neighboring carbon atom or neighboring the other atom, how many other hydrogens are present, that information we can basically obtain from the splitting pattern. Okay, a NMR signal in the NMR spectroscopy, maybe in the next class we will discuss elaborately about this, but for the time being, just remember that a NMR signal will be split into n+1 signals if it is having n different type of protons in the neighboring atoms. Okay, so that basically will be the neighboring effect. That means, so all these 4 points we can club together, and then we can interpret the molecular structure based on this all these information, right? So please remember, these 4 points are very important. At the end of your MSc, if you are unable to tell what is NMR spectroscopy that you learned, if you are able to tell these points, it will be really appreciated. Okay, please remember, all 4 points are very simple to remember, and then if you can tell, and everybody will believe that okay, you know something about NMR spectroscopy. So the first we will try to find out how many unique proton environments are there. Couple of molecules. Okay, so here the first one is ethyl bromide, the other one is some other molecule, and then toluene is given. Okay, now I think we'll try to understand how many different type of protons are there. Accordingly, those many NMR signal can be observed. Okay, so can you tell me maybe row number 7? Who is row number 7? I'll be asking. You have to answer.
Hello,
Ethyl bromide.
Ashti, sir.
Is it Ashwini?
Ashwati.
Hello, Ashwati. Tell me, Ashwati, how many?
Hello.
Very simple. Tell me, Ashwati. Tell me, how many signal
2
we can
please,
get?
sir.
Yeah. So it is 2 peak.
2.
It is a very straightforward question. Row number 19. Next molecule. Why in row number 19?
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Who is this?
Divya, sir.
Yeah. Tell me, Divya. How many?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
Just a minute.
Can you confirm?
1 minute. 1. Yes.
6. It is wrong answer. It is 5. Okay. You can just look into it. You know, the different. I have shown the protons present in different chemical environments with different colors. Okay, the black one, this 2, it is isopropyl group, right? This one CH3 twice is isopropyl group, and these 2 protons have the same chemical environment, right? This proton, when you look at, right, it is connected with a carbon which is having a hydrogen, right? Methyl, this is a CH proton, what we call it as a methyl. So it is a methine, right? And this CH3 is also having the same chemical environment. There is nothing difference. Therefore, both of them will give you one particular proton, isopropyl group. Isopropyl methyl will give you one signal. I mean, they will resonate at one position. They will not give different. They will not resonate different positions. Okay. Now again, methane proton is another one. So methyl 1, methyl 2, and this CH2 and this CH2 2. So total 4, and this methyl group is very near to the oxygen heteroatom, which is not present in the entire other molecule. So total you are going to get 5 different environment. That means you are going to get 5 different NMR peaks. And then what about the toluene? Okay, what about toluene? Row number 26.
Sir.
Who is this?
Meghna.
Meghna. Tell me, Meghna.
4, sir.
Hmm?
4.
4. You just apply the use the symmetry axis, and then you can easily make it out. Okay, so methyl, there is a 1 proton, and then the both ortho hydrogens are actually and comes under come and then resonate at one position, and then the meta and then para. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 different chemical environments are there, and then when you record the spectrum, then you will get the 4 different NMR peaks. But I must tell you in reality, you can switch off the mic.
Okay.
Okay, Meghna. So you can, but in reality, what happens is that because ortho, meta, para positions, especially a benzene ring, which is connected with the alkyl substituent, and then couple of other cases, what we see that all these 5 protons will resonate at one position, and we normally see it as a very at one position we see like a very clumsy environment, and we don't see the fine details. So they will resonate at one position. That's all. So we don't really see 1, 2, 3. So those kind of things. So benzene protons here, if you see, there are 3 high total protons, but then they can present in 3 different environments, like ortho, meta, and then para. So 1 proton is in the para, and 2 ortho proton, and then 2 meta. Sorry, 2 meta, and then 2 ortho protons are there. Normally, in reality, all these 5, especially with regard to the alkyl benzene and then aromatic substituents, any alkyl or any alkyl aromatic compounds, the ring protons will resonate at only one position. Okay, if it is monosubstituted, please remember, if it is monosubstituted, and if the substitution is alkyl, usually we see one particular multiplet which is correspond to 5 protons. So we don't see really 3 different of things. But anyway, for the sake of initial discussion, we always go with a systematic. We'll start learning from basics. So 4 different chemical environments. Okay, so I have a signal. I think this should not be the case. Yeah, anyway, fine, no problem. Okay, so this is a simulated NMR spectrum of cyclohexane. Okay, so it is a symmetrical molecule. All the 12 protons resonate at one position. Okay, so that is usually at 1.5, we will see one position. And then this is...
Sir?
Yes.
In case of cyclohexane, yesterday you have shown that the equatorial and axial hydrogen shield give different signals.
Correct. At room temperature, unless you perform at low temperature, you cannot get the 2 different signals. Even now also I mentioned that point. Rotation around a cyclic boat and chair form, it is so fast. Okay, and then within the time frame and that particular lifetime of each conform is very short at a room temperature. Suppose if you perform at low temperature, then the rotation around a particular CC bond is minimized, and within the time frame that the NMR signal will be able to determine the axial and the equatorial position. But in the normal situation, it is only one type of it will give you one chemical environment. All 12 protons will have the same chemical environment and will give you one signal at one place. That's all. Is it clear, Kuntal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now there is another compound like 2,3-dimethyl 2-butene. 2,3-dimethyl 2-butene. As you can see here, all the methyl protons, okay, all the methyl protons have the same chemical environment. It is again a symmetrical molecule. Okay, so since they are having the same chemical environment, and then they will resonate at one position. Okay, so the 12 protons. And I must also tell you here that, remember, these are very important points which are useful when you are going to determine the NMR spectrum. And you are going to assign a molecular structure for a given NMR data. Okay, so 12 protons. Suppose if I give you a data, if any question is asked in the examination point of view, 12 protons means at one position they are resonating, means it could be a cyclohexane. Okay, please remember that. Or else it could be this type of molecule. Likewise, suppose if you have a tertiary butyl group, so there are 9 protons, 3 into 3. So 9 protons are there. In that situation, the 9 protons will resonate at one particular place. Okay, so 12 protons means that these are the 2 different possibilities. Of course, we have to explore any other organic molecules are there where you have 12 protons are present in a unique chemical environment. Of course, the tetramethylsilane is the exceptional case. Anyway, it is taken as a reference. That we are not talking about that. But then, when you try to interpret your molecule, so 12 protons, there are two possibilities. Please remember this. And then benzene, again the same thing. Benzene, all 6 protons will resonate at one position, so above 7, and it is a singlet. And suppose if you have a xylene, this is a paraxylene, and it is again symmetrical molecule. As you can see here, that the 2 methyl groups will be at one position, and then these are protons on the 4 protons will resonate at one position, right? So this is aliphatic methyl proton, and then these are the aromatic protons. So aromatic protons will be seen above 7, and then the aliphatic will be seen here above 2. These are all, simulated. So unless I state exactly the data, usually most of the cases it is a simulated one, and then we can also see that usually the methyl proton will be seen only this area. Okay, in this area normally we see methyl proton will be seen here, but here it is peculiar behavior. As you see that it is gone beyond 2. Why is it so? Because this particular ring creating the ring current, and then because of that this methyl protons will be downshielded. Okay, and then tertiary butyl bromide, this is what I've been telling you that. Okay, in the previous case I was citing this example. You have a tertiary butyl bromide and you record the NMR spectrum, all these 9 proton will resonate at one position. Okay, and typically the methyl proton will be seen at as I told you that 1, but again it is connected here. Methyl is connected to a carbon, and then central carbon, and then this is connected to a bromide, which is electronegative atom, right? Because of that it will be downshielded. So these are the some of the things that you have to remember. Always use the concept of 2 things. One is the electronegativity. Okay, the other one is the ring current, whether any aromatic substituent is there or not. So those 2 things will help you, will be very much helpful for assigning the molecular structure. Okay, ethyl bromide. So ethyl bromide splitting pattern is given here. Anyway, this we will discuss after discussing the splitting thing. So this is another one, the 1-bromopropane. So you have here 3 different chemical environments are there, and here this methylene proton is connected directly to a bromide the electronegative atom, and then this one is connected to a methyl, and then there is another methylene. So this 2 will resonate at 2 different positions, even though they are methylene protons, CH2 protons, but they will resonate at 2 different positions, because that one methylene is connected to a heteroatom, the other one is somewhat far from that, and also other side it is connected to methyl group. So it will be seen different. So 3 different chemical environments, and then we will see 3 signals. Then isopropyl chloride. So isopropyl chloride, this point also I mentioned at the beginning, that the isopropyl group methyl protons will resonate at one position, and then this methyl proton, CH proton, will resonate at another position. Okay, so just remember that. And then also, maybe that splitting details maybe we will discuss after discussing the spin splitting. Okay, so 2-bromobutane is another example. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 different chemical environments are there, and then 4 different signals we can observe. And as you can see here, sometimes it so happens that the chemical environment of different protons can be the same, and as a result, we don't see a very distinguished peaks. We can't really resolve the peaks. So they will merge together, and we will see very clumsy spectral details. The best example is this, and you can see here that there is the C and D. Okay, so C and D are actually coupled here, and then you can see here all these things are coupled together, you don't see well resolved spectrum. But whereas this one, this, sorry, I think I'm wrong. Not C and D, B and C. B and C will be seen here, and then this one is seen here, and this one is this. Okay, please correct that. Okay, so this is here, and then C and B will be seen here. Why? Because that C is connected to a methane proton, which is connected to a bromide. So this will be seen here, and methylene again have the same situation, that it is connected to methane and then heteroatom. And then moreover, the methylene proton will be seen 1.2 onwards. 1.2 is the starting point of the methylene proton, but if it is connected with the heteroatom, accordingly it will be downshielded. Okay, so both of them actually coupled together, and we will see at one position. The other one, orthomethyl benzyl chloride. Orthomethyl benzyl chloride. So the benzyl proton is one, and then toluene, this is one, and the other 4 protons will resonate at one position. So this is what I was citing, that so even though these protons are different, right? So theoretically, you can say that this is one different one. So this is ortho to this this particular CH2Cl, and then meta, and then this is para. Okay. So on the other hand, this one is a other proton to this the methyl group, and then this is meta, and so on. So theoretically, it is possible that we expect that the 4 different peaks from the 4 different protons on the aromatic ring, theoretically. But in reality, what happens? They resonate at one position. Especially this is true that if the substituents are actually not very much electron withdrawing, if they are not strong enough in terms of electron withdrawing nature, then usually it is the case that they will be seen at one position, and we don't see any splitting pattern. Okay, so likewise, we can continue and discuss many things. Okay, so maybe what I do, I skip some of these things, and then I will straight away go to couple of problems which I would like to discuss today. Where are those? Okay. Maybe this exercise we can also have it. Maybe, I think we'll go to the problems. Okay, so we will start with again. I will call a couple of people. Please try to respond. The first and foremost, methyl acetate is the one. Okay, the first and foremost molecule is methyl acetate. Can you tell me roll number 32? I have given 2 chemical shift values. Okay, 2.0. The other one is 3.6. Who is roll number 32?
Sir,
Who is 31?
Rishika.
Tell me, Rishika. I have given 2 chemical shift values. Can you assign what is 2? 2 is for what? Which proton? And then 3.6 is for which proton? Very basic question. Quick.
2 is for
This one?
2
or
is
for this one. Left side proton or left side methyl proton or right side? You tell that way.
2 is for right and 3.6 for left.
3.6 is for left. So any other answer from roll number 29?
Sir, I also say the same answers.
Who is roll number 29? Ravi.
Ravi Kumar.
You also same?
Yes, sir.
Both are wrong. How come that this will be 2? This is, here you can see here this is connected to a carbonyl group.
Right.
Okay, this is connected to a carbonyl group, and this methyl group is connected to a heteroatom. Heteroatom, that is oxygen. Okay, so which is more electron withdrawing? Definitely oxygen, right?
Yes, sir.
Definitely oxygen. That way you have to remember the connectivity is important. Okay, you are thinking that it is connected with the carbon. Carbon is not that electron withdrawing. Carbon electronegativity is less as compared to the oxygen atom. So therefore, the oxygen atom actually pull the electron towards itself from this methyl carbon, right? As a result, the carbon will try to pull the electron density towards itself. Okay, so this is the case. Whereas in this case, it is a carbon. But here there are two different things are involved. So this one will be at 2.G on the left hand one, and this one will be 3.6 ppm. Now I will call you roll number 7. Roll number 7.
Hello, sir.
Who is this? May I know?
Ashwati, sir.
Oh, Ashwati.
Hi, sir.
Now you tell me. Last time you got very simple question. Now I am asking very difficult question. Just give the approximate chemical shift values for the N-methyl acetamide. The chemical formula is also given. You can give the N-methyl acetamide. Let's say, okay, this proton, where it will give. Okay, start from the left side.
Okay, sir.
Approximate values. Need not to be very accurate.
The left side of proton will have low delta value, low chemical shift. Proton on the nitrogen will be more shielded, so it will be less shielded. Therefore, it must show higher chemical shift value.
Yeah, tell. I'm listening. You tell that. So there are two possibilities, two things. This is a methyl, and the right side, extreme right, you have another methyl, right? And where two things will give. That is the first thing that one has to look into it. So NH proton, we will come to that later. First, there are two methyl protons on both sides. Now, this is connected to nitrogen, this is connected to oxygen. So what do you think? That this proton will be shielded or this proton will be shielded? I'm sure I'm sure that you know what is the meaning of shielded.
The methyl group attached to the nitrogen will be less shielded, sir.
That means this proton will be seen here, the other one will be here, right?
Yes, sir.
So this one, you mean to say this is here, right? And then this one is here. Can you tell me approximate positions? Did you read the chemical shift values? Did you read chemical shift values in the table?
No, sir.
You did not read. Okay. So can you guess now? Already I told you what should be the methyl proton, where it will resonate. If it is just a methyl, alkyl methyl, where it
among 1 to 2.
1 to 2. No,
2.
It will not go to 2.
I'm not sure.
Unless it is directly connected to the oxygen atom. Okay. So this will be seen roughly about 2.2 around 2 that you can see roughly about 1.5. Okay. So this will be roughly 1.5, and this will be roughly above 2. Why I'm saying above 2? Because it is connected to a electron withdrawing highly electronegative atom, nitrogen. That is the reason why. And now finally, where the NH proton will give. Yesterday we discussed this point. OH proton, NH proton, thiol proton. Where it will give.
Due to hydrogen bonding, it will be in a downshielded position, sir.
What is that position? This is what I wanted. This is what yesterday I told you to read, all of you. What is the position of NH proton? I told you in the yesterday class also. I told this number
5 to 6.
Anybody in the class? What is the NH proton position? Anybody can answer. What is the typical region of NH proton?
Between 7 and 10.
Between
7 to 10.
7 to 10. What is the nature of NH proton? It is sharp, broad, or
Broad.
broad. Who is the Kuntal?
Yes, sir.
So, what is the position of NH proton according to you?
7, 8.
7, 8.
5 to 9, sir.
So you have to really remember and memorize those numbers. Study, remember, and we are interpreting the data. So these are the four things that is required for you in the organic chemistry data or maybe data. You have certain points. There are all things you have to remember. Okay. Tomorrow, then we will discuss further. This is what I mentioned. You find out. All of you, you find out where NH proton will give. This is basically aliphatic amide. I think, right? It is a aliphatic amide. I'm sure that most of you will agree, right? It is aliphatic amide. In the case of aliphatic amide, where the NH proton will resonate. That is the point that you have to discuss. You have to find out. And then next compound, that row number 2. Who is row number 2? Can you give approximate chemical shift values for acetone NMR spectrum? Roll number 2. Who is roll number 2? Is it present? Anybody present or absent? Nobody is there. Okay, roll number 3. Roll number 3. Roll number 4.
Yes, sir.
Who is this?
Archana.
Archana. Tell me. Archana.
Approximately 12.
Approximately 12.
Between 12.
Why
Sorry,
it is
not 12. Between 2 and 5.
between 2 and 5?
Yes, I think.
Yes, I think. Okay, roll number 1. Roll number 1. Roll number 1. Who is roll number 1 actually? Anne-Marie, huh? So Anne-Marie is not there. Okay. Irene,
Yes, sir.
tell me.
Sir,
friend has,
around
yeah, what is your answer? Yeah, tell me. Your friend is
sir,
telling 2 to 5. And what is your answer?
around 2 and 2 to 2.4.
2 to 2.4. Okay, so are you sure?
Around 2 to 3.
Around 2 to 3. You have to be very accurate. Anyway, fine. So let me find out from one more student. Roll number 7, 8. So I got two answers for this. One is a 2 to 5 by Archana. The other one is a 2 to 3 by Irene. Another answer. Roll number 8. If 8 is not there, 9.
Nearby 2, sir.
Nearby 2. So Bhuvaneshwaram, what is your roll number?
9, sir.
Okay, 9. So nearby 2 is telling. Okay. It is not 2. It is not exactly 2 to 5. Okay. So it is above 2 and then between 2.25. So anywhere it can come. So it is 2 to 2.2 or 2.3, something like that. But it can't go more than that. Okay. So the chemical shift value, the methyl proton will be in this region. So it can't go more than that. Because you remember that anywhere if a methyl is connected to a CO, then it will be around 2. Okay, around 2, slightly above than 2. But it can't be 3 or it can be 5 or above 5. Certainly it can. Next question, roll number 15. Who is roll number 15? Gino, tell me. So can you predict the NMR spectrum of this? Only one.
That will be around 3 point, about 3.2.
About 3 point?
3.5, that range.
Yeah, it's fine. So above 3 it will come. Okay, it is directly connected to the heteroatom. Above 3 it will come. Next, dimethylamine. So dimethylamine again, dimethylamine. So here there are how many signals we can expect? Roll number 20. Who is this?
Sir, I'm Kiran.
Kiran. Tell me, Kiran.
Sir, it is around 2 to 5 range. That
2 to
5.
For what? Which proton? It is this or this? Methyl proton or NH proton you are talking about?
Methyl proton.
Methyl proton will be 2 to 5. Next, Anjali, Ashwini.
Sir, Anjali has left.
Okay, Ashwini.
Sir, around 7.
Around 7 NH proton. Okay. What about methyl proton?
Methyl proton less than 2.
Methyl proton less than 2. Less than 2 means can it be 1?
No, sir. Maybe 1.7.
Okay, so I think most of you, what I understood, this exercise will not be exciting unless you really go through the values. Okay, I think most of you have not gone through it. This is what I understood. Fine, I think already time is up, and then in between we have some disturbance also. I think the next class, by next class, I have many problems. This exercise will be good only when you really participated. Okay, so to participate, all of you have to go through the tables and then come. Then this exercise will have a meaning and you will also learn. Okay, so with this I conclude today class, and we will meet some other day